Any other Louisville analogies I can make, Corny?
I'll take any. I'll take any.
It's good to hear your voice. Thanks for doing our show.
Well, thank you for asking me. I want to say before we get started, I ordered Wrestle Kingdom 9, the Tokyo Dome show, first wrestling pay-per-view I've actually paid for in 20 years. And in your honor, as I was watching it, I had a bowl of vanilla ice cream with some Hershey syrup on top of it.
Oh, you rascal.
Yeah, I put the whipped cream on just to, just to top the whole evening off. And it was a great show. You did a wonderful job, and you had great stuff to call. Imagine that for once, and nobody screaming at you in your ear.
It was really fun. I had a great time. Even though I was working with wrestling's version of Eddie Haskell, Matt Stryker, somebody, I told Jeff Jarrett, I said, I think I'm going to ask for a bonus when the show's over, because I had to sit beside Matt Stryker 4.5 hours, and I was going to kid him. And Jeff, was everything all right? Yeah, everything's great. Everything's good. We didn't hear. We have yet to hear from any of the Japanese folks since January the 4th, or I haven't heard a word from them. So it was good to do a show, to sit down and do it.
Well, that generally means that you didn't do anything wrong, right? Because when you do something wrong, you hear it right away.
Usually, yeah, that's kind of the deal. No doubt about it. I had fun. Other than the first night, Jarrett takes us to dinner when we land. Everybody's hungry and cranky and tired, and you want to get in the room at some point. So we go to this restaurant near the hotel. At the very top of the page, it's an all Japanese menu, but they have pictures. So I ordered, to not create any drama here, I ordered chicken kebabs, except I couldn't identify all the parts of the chicken that was on the stick. They looked like two nuts, looked like two acorns, and I wasn't sure if it was liver or kidneys or
nuts
or other balls. I didn't know what it was. A male chicken. I had no idea what it was. And of course, I had the bright idea to ask the waiter what I'm eating, and he don't speak English, and I don't speak Japanese, so we came to a standstill on that one, and I left those two little marble-looking rascals alone. I ate one, and it was like chewing a piece of Play-Doh, but it was horrible. But at the top of the menu, it had horse meat. They had a special on horse meat. So if you want a nice horse meat dinner, you could get one there where we stopped to eat. But I passed on that, too.
Next time, don't let Jeff pick the restaurant.
Yeah, I think he was jet lagged. Bless his heart. He was messed up.
He took me to good sushi in Orlando one time, but you're actually in Tokyo, and he tanks the restaurant.
Yeah, well, everybody's got an off night every now and then, but we had it was a good trip. It was a nice hotel, good trip. I enjoyed working with Stryker. There are only a few guys with that Japanese group that spoke any English noticeably. Nakamura was one of them, but I didn't go up to him and say, "Hey, what's your finish tomorrow night, or what you going to do?" Because I didn't want to know really. I just kind of wanted to tag along, and it was good that way. And he's really special, Corny. He could draw money here in the States in a heartbeat, I think.
And also it was nice seeing a different flavor, because I haven't watched a lot of current wrestling these days. If it's in color, it's too new for me these days. But I did enjoy it, and it was treated so seriously. Imagine that.
Yeah, we had fun. I told Stryker, so we're going to do this thing like it's a Super Bowl. The last couple of weeks, I believe it has, I've been mentioning ChimCornette.com. And it isn't a porn site. It's a memorabilia site. And it's not just a wrestling site either, by the way. But what I wanted to talk to you about in the beginning here, and also to publicly thank you for sending me your collection of the lost Mid-Atlantic wrestling shows on DVD. I was very impressed that you had them nicely packaged, and everything was, ship shape. And I really,
I'm always known for my slipshod work, but I stepped it up on this one.
Your packing is good. Hey, when you got a home business, and I've been in this area, and you're doing packing and you're shipping, what a pain in the ass.
Oh, I bet. I even used the professional grade peanuts.
You did really. You did.
Yeah.
This is first class. Now I know the story that you stumble on these tapes because they're getting ready to be thrown into the dumpster. when Crockett was moving out of their facility after WCW Turner bought Crockett. So that's the timeline. But kind of how did it? Tell us how kind of how you discovered what was going to go in the trash.
Actually, Crockett had sold to Turner, and we were already out of the Charlotte office in terms of going over there, every week and cutting promos as we did, and blah blah blah. But I knew that they were coming to take all the stuff, the rings and the TV tapes and whatever equipment that they bought in the sale. And I told the janitor, remember old Leonard that did the overnight dubs, I said, if they go to throw anything away related to wrestling, because I'm a big collector, posters or pictures, programs, whatever, this is a giant wrestling office with all this history. If they go to throw anything away, call me and I'll come get it. And he calls me one afternoon and he says, well, we got a big stack of posters, which of course are all over my office walls now, and a few miscellaneous pictures and things, and a bunch of boxes of film. What? I get over there on the street next to the dumpster and the garbage on the sidewalk with all the rest of the shit that they didn't want. Was 5 big boxes of 16mm film that turned out to be the existing archive of all of the house show matches from the 70s that were shot in the Carolinas on 16mm film before they went to videotape in like 1979. And, of course, a lot of them were not labeled properly, and also they had been sitting on storage shelves in the little interview studio that they had in the office for years, so when Klondike Bill would bring in the box from Price's Chicken Coop every Wednesday for lunch for the guys that were doing promos all day for all the local towns, the guys would eat the chicken and throw the chicken bones up in those boxes. So I had to weed through the chicken bones, take out all the film.
That's nice.
And I ended up, long story short, too late. Had a friend who was able to transfer it nights at his job at an audio-visual lab. And, I was amazed that not only did Crockett not care anything about this stuff, and I know it was before home video, but that came in, but they didn't care about it. It was just, sitting there basically with chicken bones in it.
Right.
But then Turner Broadcasting didn't want the stuff because it wasn't, a TV tape that it could be readily played. And if not for me having a chance conversation with the janitor, all this stuff would have been lost. And as you've seen, we're talking about matches with Flair against Steamboat from the first program around in the 70s. Every NWA champion, Dory Funk Jr., Jack Briscoe, Harley Race, the Anderson brothers, Greg Valentine, Johnny Valentine, Wahoo McDaniel, Blackjack Mulligan, literally every big name NWA star from the 70s. And these are house show matches from Charlotte and Greensboro and Richmond. Title changes, important things, interviews of guys coming to the Carolinas like Johnny Valentine and the Spoiler, Don Jardine, and Ric Flair teaming up with a guy named Rip Hawk. Stuff of Flair before the plane crash when, as you mentioned, these guys were still figuring out who they were and finding out what worked for them. So you were seeing them develop the...
Let's go! Levantate, everybody get up! Levantate, everybody get up! Levantate, everybody get up! Levantate,
Este Black Friday, levántate. Empieza el jueves a las 6 p.m.
everybody get up!
Develop the trademark stuff that later on in the 80s, everybody would know, but then they were trying and failing sometimes. But the level of heat from the people is off the chart. It's an amazing piece of history.
Yeah, a different era, a different mindset. The fans had a different perspective of the genre itself. This is, Corny and I were talking earlier today, yesterday before we were on the air, and the neat thing is what a real student of the game is going to enjoy on this deal is they're going to see, let's say Flair. Flair got his act down. He got his smooth set in. He got his, he sings Hotel California. He sings, like the Eagles. They got a set. They do their thing. Well, Rick at that time didn't know what his thing was.
Yeah.
And he's still trying to figure out who he's going to be. And then you get all these old school guys that are trying to help him because they knew he was special. That's why he was put with Rip Hawk, because Rip Hawk was an old veteran and was a great tag team guy. But all those other guys,
and that's why he was in there with Ole and Gene a lot too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you see the evolution of some of the biggest stars in the history of pro wrestling, and on these mid-Atlantic tapes, that you can learn all more about them. But you got to remember this, folks. Wherever you live, it doesn't matter. JimCornette.com. And Corny, I'm assuming. Now, you tell me if I'm right or wrong. I don't know open a can of worms here, but are there countries where you can't ship these tapes?
I haven't found one yet. I'm not sure whether we can send them to Cuba yet or not, but that may even be changing. But now, JR, you're showing your age, because they're DVDs now, like the young folks call them. You said tapes.
Oh, damn.
And I do the same thing. We got to tape, Walking Dead this week, because we're going to miss it.
I know.
But actually, the reason why I had them on tape, I got them transferred in 1989. And I had 10 friends of mine that were big-time wrestling tape collectors like me, and I split up the cost by selling them sets, and then I put them on my shelf, and I've had them all these years. And finally, thanks to the help of a young man here in town, I am my research assistant, Seth Manhammer. I am transferring a lot of my tape collection to DVD, and he's doing research for me at the library. So at any rate, I transferred these suckers to DVD for the first time since 1989 off of my original tape transfers. And I said, well, it might not be something that, only the serious wrestling fan would want these. It's 18 discs. It's 36 hours. And I mean, I could have chopped it up and said, oh, here's the best of whatever, but I'm such a mark for box sets and completion-type collections and memorabilia, which is why I'm in it. I'm always looking for something for the website. So anyway, I said, I'm going to do these as a collector's set. It's straight from my collection. I do the dubs. I hand-label the DVDs, and the contents list comes autographed by me, so you've got from the original collection, right? This is the ultimate Dylan bootleg, basement tape, underground type thing. But it's really, it's been popular, and people, it's so different to go back and watch these guys now, and the product has changed so much. But you see the guys leading the crowd, like the orchestra leader, and the people are just throwing babies in the air, and there's so much excitement in the matches. So anyway, you get the official existing collection, an exact duplicate of mine by Cracky.
Yeah, the funny thing here is this: the older fans like me, been around for a long time, been a fan all their life, gonna love this. Because I'm anxious to see see how Flair changed. I'm anxious to see how Mulligan changed, and Wahoo, and the ruggedness, that Japanese strong style we talked about with Nakamura and Tanahashi and Okada and those kids.
Here's Johnny Valentine and Wahoo McDaniel hitting each other so hard they can hear it. That's why 40 years later, people in the Carolinas and at the Charlotte Fan Fest every year in August that Greg Price does, NWALegends.com. You got to come sometime, JR. You'd have a ball.
Yeah, I want to come. I've been there once and I had a really good time, but I haven't been there in 3, 4, 5 years. So I'm due to come back. But
they still talk about how hard that Valentine and Wahoo would hit each other, and you could actually see it, and they're leaning into them like, yes, hit me harder, and it's. But they built a territory on that stuff, and it's amazing. There's even actually the only existing footage that I know of David Crockett wrestling is David Finlay here against Swede Hansen.
Wow.
Which apparently they were not going to give him any breaks because he was the son of the boss.
Right. Swede was more than happy to accommodate. Think of all those paydays, or those lack of paydays, because that's the one thing you can always say about the territory. There's always somebody bitching about a payday to some degree. So Swede will always have a little something there. David Finlay, I have never seen. Hey, when I like to look at my list of stuff here, and
I'm gonna stooge one other thing off for you because it's all the way on disc 18, the last disc.
Okay.
But there's an interview with Ole Anderson Freddie Miller from Atlanta is in a hospital room. It's where Gene had neck surgery, and he really did. You know, he had neck issues. And he's in the traction thing in bed, and Freddie Miller's interviewing Ole Anderson. And, of course, Flair and Valentine have done this, have put Gene in the hospital. And Ole's interview is unbelievable because it sounds like a tough guy that Ole was, and certainly sounded like, and was gruff, etc., really reacting to two punks that hospitalized and almost killed his brother. And it just, you would not see anything like it on television today, but you understand why people believe that guy meant every word he said.
Yeah, that's good stuff. He didn't, and nobody wrote it for him. This is what he felt. It just came out. It was all raw emotion. So I'll look for that. That's on disc 18.
The very last one. But you can't skip ahead, JR. You have to do everything in order.
I am. I promise I will. So that's at JimCornette.com. Look at all the Cornette's collectibles, but if you really want to go back in time and see where a lot of these guys created their foundation, and I look at it this way, I'm always trying to look at ways to help the next generation of guys perpetuate this crazy business another generation or two. You need to study these things because you can learn so much. What was old then is new now.
Well, there's holes and moves in this business that nobody does anymore, and when's the last time the Hurricane Rana has taken over for the flying head scissors to the point where you never see the good old-fashioned flying head scissors anymore.
Smoking is an addiction that eats away at nearly every vital organ of your body. Cigarettes are eating you alive. Quitting is hard. Don't do it alone. Treatment and medication are covered by most health insurance and Medicaid. Talk with your healthcare provider.
If there's any more. But there's holes and moves. And I credit the British wrestlers and the World of Sport fans with keeping a lot of the holes alive, but there's a lot of moves that guys used to do that aren't necessarily wrestling holes per se, that you never see anymore because they just got lost for some reason. And, you know, you get to see a guy like Cyclone Negro on these tapes, here I'm doing it now, on these DVDs.
Yes.
And everything he does is so solid, but it's a different kind of style. And there's all kinds of stuff that an aspiring wrestler could steal. Because, you know, when you steal from one person, it's plagiarism. But when you steal from many, it's research.
Exactly. I think it's I'll be really curious to see who, not you got to tell me, but if any of these rookies or anybody's name you recognize actually invests into their own education. That's how I look at it.
But they can also go ahead and order them like under an assumed name or their girlfriend's name or whatever, and they won't be outed on any of our programs.
But they also should remember it's a tax deduction.
Well, there you go, because it's job related training.
Yeah, absolutely, it really is. So hey, moving along here because I got a lot of ground to cover here in this deal, and I'm looking forward to all of it. How would you, again, you said you didn't follow product much. Have you followed enough of the WWE to see the conundrum they're in with Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan?
Well, actually, the Blizzard show helped them out. It was great ratings. I was even so curious. What are they going to do? I got to see this. And in the process, I was able to see the three-way from the Rumble, which I thought was excellent on everybody's part. Now, I've talked to you about Tyler Black in the past when he was with Ring of Honor before he even signed with Developmental, and I'm a big fan of his, and I think he was great anyway. And then the Rumble was a fiasco, and I've talked about this on my program, The Jim Cornette Experience, on MLWRadio.com, and
ding, ding, ding.
I wrote a column about it for Fighting Spirit magazine in the United Kingdom, fightingspirit.co.uk or whatever the case may be. But anyway,
you're a damn media mogul.
Well, I'm all over. But how did they not see? The people in Boston got 3 days' notice about the blizzard, and they were still able to hunker down for it. And they had weeks of notice for this. They knew what was going to happen. If Daniel Bryan was in that match in Philadelphia with the history of the past year and got dumped out and didn't win it. And this is not derogatory to Roman Reigns. If I was going to draw a picture of the perfect wrestling superstar. There he is, and he's got the bloodlines, and he's got the athleticism, and I think he should be the big star, a big star, the big star. But why did they have to do that, and didn't they know what reaction they were going to get?
I would never have had Daniel Bryan in the Royal Rumble.
No!
No way. And look, hindsight, you and I both have talked about angles, and we both worked together a lot, whether it be for Bill, Cowboy in Mid-South, or WCW, or for Crockett. I got to work for you in Smoky Mountain for a while. We worked together in WWE. We worked together in all kinds of environments, in all kinds of roles, different situations. They held out, WWE, in hindsight's easy, so I was going to say, but WWE held out Randy Orton from that Royal Rumble and Sheamus, two of their bigger stars that they've invested a lot of time and money in. But they forgot to take out the most important guy that didn't need to be in it, unless he's going to win it, and that's Daniel Bryan. And I don't understand how you could, maybe it was an oversight, or maybe WWE underestimated Daniel Bryan's popularity. I don't know.
I would think they would almost had to have done that, and they also had to underestimate the crankiness of the people in Philadelphia.
Well, they didn't have any issues expressing themselves, and I knew that afternoon I did my little one-man show in Philly, and we had a great crowd, wall-to-wall. It wasn't a big facility, but it was really wall-to-wall, really great audience. They're smart. They're intuitive. A lot of them are third-generation fans. You know, they've just been around it all their life, and they're smarter than a lot of people perceive. And because they've got that Northeastern kind of a swagger, they don't have any problem telling you how they feel. And, man, when Daniel Bryan got eliminated from that Rumble, that damn show came off the tracks.
Oh, and what a spectacular elimination. He got shoved off the apron and just kind of deposited. And I hesitate to take up a lot of time because I drone on in detail, and I pitched this on my show last week, and like I said, I wrote a column about it. Just anything. This was a 1.5 dump type of idea in timing that it took me to come up with this. But since they knew the obvious problems, it would seem to me that the only way that they can get their guy over is by having the guy the fans want to be over somehow endorse that guy, meaning Daniel Bryan has to endorse Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
And my suggestion would have been Daniel Bryan doesn't go in the Rumble. Roman Reigns wins the Rumble because he doesn't get hijacked because Daniel Bryan's not in it to begin with, and then send Daniel Bryan out to the ring, and they have the stare down. And Daniel Bryan just says, "We got to talk," and Reigns, being the badass, says, "Not now." And Daniel Bryan says, "When?" And Roman Reigns says, "Tomorrow." And Daniel Bryan turns around and walks off. What's going to happen on Raw?
Yeah.
And then they announce that they've had their talk. And Daniel Bryan says, "We've both got a problem. I've been out for a year. I don't know if I can still be the best wrestler in the world, and if I can't be the best, I don't want to do this at all. I'm not in shape right now to be 100%. He's got a problem. He's a Samoan badass, but he's a rookie. And Brock Lesnar's been on top for 15 years, UFC champion, WWE champion. He knows the tricks. He's used to the big matches. But this guy's younger, and I think he may be stronger, and he's definitely faster. So I've got a solution. Bryan agrees to train Roman Reigns for the world title match at WrestleMania against Lesnar. All the MMA he's studied, all the wrestling around the world he's done. He's a veteran. He's the trainer. Reigns is the beast that soaks it up. But in training him, Daniel Bryan will either get in the best shape he's ever been, or he'll know that he can't do it at all. And the payoff is, if Reigns wins at WrestleMania, Daniel Bryan gets the first title shot.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. I had an idea on my show about having the contract signing on Raw between Reigns and Lesnar. Of course, Happy Heyman would be there, and this would be on Raw, and it would be before the event, and you would see a changing of the guard where Heyman would turn his back on Lesnar, Lesnar.
No, not Paul.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. And Heyman would be the ringleader. The gangland hideout of Elliot.
Okay, explain it, please.
What would I say to her to make her understand how I felt about her? Just, man.
Oh, I don't know. That's a tough question to answer.
What's the word?
I mean,
it's not even, I don't even know how to begin saying that.
So we've got a surprise for you. He doesn't know that you're able to watch him now.
She saved me. I was in a pretty dark place when I met her. So I'm going to spend the rest of my life showing her.
she fills me with joy. She makes me happy every time I see her. I love her with all that I am.
How can you put the love of someone carrying you around for 9 months, giving their life up for you, doing all these things just so you can succeed? Like, those are the things you can't express back in words.
I would tell her that her friendship fills a place in my heart that no one else can.
She always made sure that we're a family. Was always there for us. I always thought she was very beautiful. As a young lady, and as an older lady, she still is.
I'll be there for him no matter what. I just want to make him happy. Like, he deserves to be happy.
I don't know how to tell you how much you mean to me, and what you've done for me, and how you've changed who I am to be the best possible person that I could be. You're absolutely amazing in every single way that I can even fathom. The way that I feel about you is something so tremendous that right now, the words that I'm saying will never be able to capture it. It's just an experience and a feeling that I would hope everyone in the world can feel that way, at least for 1 second, the way that I feel with you every second. I guess that's what I would say.
Ringleader, the gangland hideout of Elliot Ness is impregnated.
Late that night in the Southside Chicago apartment of Elliot Ness.
Yes. And then here, Punk will listen to this show and say, that goddamn Cornette, that egg-sucking dog did that Frank Nitti impersonation again. I'm calling my brother Dory immediately. Wait, I lost his number 20 years ago. So I had this idea. Heyman turns, Reigns, and the contract signed, but on the scene, as you leave the scene, it's Lesnar down, tables on top of him, maybe some chairs, whatever it takes, and Heyman is leaving with Reigns. So now there's a new alliance, Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns, and this goes right into you see it on pre-TV, and when you get up, then when Lesnar gets up, the announcers all leave, and then you got a minute or two left of TV time. The announcers leave. Lesnar tears the announce area up like nobody has ever done. Anything that's not nailed down, he bends or breaks.
Gimmick a ring post. Let him knock the ring over.
Yeah, whatever. But all we know is that when Lesnar gets to WrestleMania with the title, there's going to be hell to pay for multiple people. And you're either going to be with Lesnar or you're going to be against him. I think Lesnar is this close to being the biggest baby face in the company right now anyway. And this would put Reigns into a different little role.
How long is he going to be in the company, though? What do you think?
Who, Brock?
Is he going to try fighting one more time?
I've said for several weeks, and I have nothing to go on. And I got a lot of friends in UFC that I communicate with, and they haven't told me anything. But my gut tells me that Lesnar left the UFC under terms that he's not too excited about, losing 2 in a row and trying to fight back to the diverticulitis and all that stuff. I think that he's got unfinished business, and I think that he has a chance to make a lot of money fighting 2 or 3 times a year, and he's still going to be a huge attraction. UFC is not long on stars; they need bodies. So I kind of think he's going back to UFC, and Bellator is going to make him an amazingly nasty offer because they're owned by Viacom. They got lots and lots of money, and they signed Brock Lesnar. That would put a big stamp of approval on their brand of MMA. So.
Isn't it great that stars can actually make a difference in people's business these days, even if it's not the wrestling business?
Yeah,
they can.
It's just amazing too how closely you follow that trail of MMA and how parallel it is to pro wrestling in a lot of ways.
Golly, some people have been saying that for years, but they wouldn't listen to either you or me. Those people, would they?
No, they would not. They would not. Hey, so. Now,
remember when I had we had Severn and Shamrock in the same company at the same time, and instead of fighting each other on pay-per-view, the other guy was booking like people to be, diva pillow fights and people to be painted different colors.
Yeah, it was that was lost. That was just money left on the ground. That could have been so natural, and so easy to pull off. It would have been a lot like that Sakuraba Suzuki match. They could just change a little this, change a little bit of that. Don't use the ropes. Make it more MMA based. And you could have had a hell of an attraction, a different match, other than anything else on the card. Now, with your theory of what you outlined, and what would be your pick for the main event at WrestleMania? Who's going to be in the WWE title match at WrestleMania if you had your way?
Well, but see, then the thing is now what they've done is, okay, they had Rollins and Bryan, and now it's going to be Bryan and Reigns, and the people are going to boo Roman Reigns out of the building. And if that is what the reaction they are wanting to engender, then that's wonderful. But once again, it's a traveling fan. It's the pay-per-view fan that spends a lot of money. The one's more likely to chant yes, 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 and want Daniel Bryan to succeed. And at the same time, Lance Storm made an excellent point in a column that he wrote recently. The WWE has now spent 20 years conditioning the fans that the authority figures, the owners, the McMahon family, the office, are a bunch of heels, rich billionaire heels that oppress the wrestlers. So now they're surprised that the fans are starting to get mad at the company instead of the heels. So I don't know what I'd do now because I wouldn't want to be in the spot that they're in. And then if they switch it and Daniel Bryan beats Roman Reigns and goes on to get the WrestleMania match, then whether he wins or loses, you've hurt Roman Reigns at a time you didn't need to, and vice versa. If Roman Reigns beats Daniel Bryan and goes on and meets his date with Destiny, the fans aren't going to like it. You're not going to get the desired response unless you want to switch Reigns heel. And then if Brock leaves, he's your baby face. He just left, and you've got Roman Reigns, who's your face, but he's a heel now, and you've got to take at least a year to switch him back. Or, oh boy, they're in a corner here.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough spot. Well,
so my answer to your question is, I wouldn't have been in that spot. I would have started with the Rumble and branched them on different branches of the tree.
Yeah, I would have had. The minute I knew when Daniel Bryan was going to be released, I would start booking WrestleMania. And the thing about it is that I think all the business as a whole. I heard this when I went to Tokyo that the top guys in the match, the 3 top matches at the Tokyo Dome, had not lost since August. This was January. They'd been involved in some tags, but as far as the big singles matches, the big focal points of the shows, the Chi ones and all this other stuff, nobody figured in those matches had lost. The booker had done a hell of a job getting everybody ready for their roles in those top 3 matches.
Oh, okay, answer this question. Do you ever remember in the history of wrestling a guy getting over as a main event talent, as a star, without winning the vast majority of his matches and losing very few when he was being established?
No. Of course not.
Well, then why do they think it's going to be different all of a sudden?
It's against basic human nature. You can't plan it and today and execute it tomorrow, especially WrestleMania. It's such a big deal. And really, it launches the rest of the year. It closes out a part of the year. It's a very unique business. And at one time, I would have loved to have seen, and I'm not telling you, it still wouldn't be a good match. They didn't have enough time on Monday, and they had too many guys at ringside. But I'd love to see Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins have like a 30, 45-minute wrestling match.
Oh, my God, yes.
It'd be good, and I think that people would really get into it in a stadium environment because they could get lost in it. It wouldn't be wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and, and a weak finish.
But you know what, then, and I know some people, you can please some people and some people you can't. As my mother used to say, he'd complain if you hung him with a new rope.
Yep.
But would people see that match as the Miss Congeniality Award at WrestleMania? Well, they couldn't be in the main event challenging for the title. They're just the best wrestlers, so let's just let them wrestle each other.
Right.
I think they're going to have to realize in the decision-making process that a lot of times people can tell with the cosmetically pleasing people that they want. I'm not talking about Reigns here because I think he's a star. But sometimes the people that look the part, the fans are seeing through it these days. They'd rather see the guys that outperform those guys.
Well, Corny, whether guys like me and you, old school guys, but man, this is a different audience than this business has ever experienced, in my view. Because of all the information flow and the Twitter and Instagram and all the social media tools that you have, the business has never been like this before. It used to be they wanted you to sign something. Now it's always a picture with their camera phone, and they give you. And a lot of them want you to know that they understand that you should understand. They know what's going on. So they quote something from the internet. Hey, how about those quarter-hour ratings last week? That kind of deal. Or
they meet Colonel Sanders in the airport and they want to tell him how to cook chicken.
Yeah, that's it. Anyway, it's a different audience, tougher to handle. WWE. What I tell people is this: WWE, you're really going to see what they're made of between now and WrestleMania, storyline-wise. It should increase their ratings. They have a great opportunity because I think there are a lot of fans that are like me that are not sure where they're going, and I just kind of want to follow along and see what happens as a wrestling fan, because I don't read the spoilers, the Jardines I call them. I refuse to read the Jardine.
Smoking is an addiction that eats away at nearly every vital organ of your body. Cigarettes are eating you alive. Quitting is hard. Don't do it alone. Treatment and medication are covered by most health insurance and Medicaid. Talk with your healthcare provider.
It's not good. So,
or if it's the Memphis territory, it'd be the Frank Morrells.
Okay, there you go. The Frank Morrells, yes. Listen, we're going to take a real quick break, folks. Come right back with Jim Cornette. Remember, JimCornette.com has a plethora of things I'm sure you'd be interested in, including the lost Mid-Atlantic wrestling tapes that were taped at the live events that we used to be able to call house shows. And the guys worked hard. They made their money. Remember, the talents then made 99.9% of their money at those house shows. So nobody went to the house show and laid on their ass and phoned it in, or if they did, they didn't do it very often, and they sure didn't do it very long. So you get to see some really good stuff and see guys evolve. And we'll talk more about that, but it's at JimCornette.com, and we'll come back with more of Jim Cornette.
Let's go. All new Rich Eisen Show.
What is it?
What is it? Who better to tell you than Rich Eisen?
This is what we're going to have on the show. Just talking football along with music and movies and television shows, interesting things of our pop culture landscape, of which the NFL is part. And that's all you really want at the end of the day.
The Rich Eisen Show.
Hold on a minute. This is probably my therapist.
Go to podcast1/Rich Eisen to hear every show.
Back here with James E. Cornette, my boy, James E. My God.
Oh, look at all my beautiful stars, JR.
You know, he looks so wonderful in polyester. Like he was one time you call him the Prince of Polyester. Did it make him mad? Did it make him mad? No, he wasn't mad, Mr. Barnett. He was good. But, you know, if I called Terry Funk the Prince of Polyester, he would have said, you know, good bastard, Ross, that's all your Oklahoma ass is good for, is to make fun of people when they can't defend themselves. I wish my brother Dory was here. I'd assign him to listen to you. Oh, God. You know, look, you worked for a lot of real smart guys. You grew up watching intently more than one territory, which you're lucky because you got that. This was before cable.
I had to work at it, though.
Yeah, you did. I know you did.
Staying up late at night and devising new ways to wire antennas that probably nearly tipped the house over. But I got the show.
There you go. Did you, of all the territories that you worked in, where does the Cowboy rank in, you know, what you took out of the territory when you left?
Oh, I always say that Mid-South Wrestling was like a military school for wrestling. It was the college of wrestling knowledge. The best territory I think I worked from an enjoyment, both professional and personal standpoint, where you lived, the people you're working with, the houses and the business, was the Carolinas, was Mid-Atlantic Wrestling. Because I take ultimate pride in probably more than anything else the records that we set in Mid-South Wrestling with the Last Stampede series and with the Rock'n'Roll Express and the business that we did. But God, it was miserable to live and work in that territory. Just geographically and just the constant riots and threats to your life, as you well know, made me, a lesser man would have developed some kind of nervous disorder and like an anger management issue or something. Fortunately, I overcame all that.
Yes. Or
I was quite meek and mild when I first came there, and I was a nervous breakdown patient when I left a year later.
Yeah, you had assaulted a Wendy's. You took a Wendy's ransom. I always got worried about you. You know, I'd see a fast food chain hostage situation. Fast food chain hostage situation. I said, oh my God, Corny's finally snapped.
I told you no mustard.
Yeah,
I told you all
of you bastards. You know I don't like mustard. Slowly I turned, and I got the mayonnaise jar.
Inch by inch I crept up on him. Then I leaned over the counter and I grabbed him away from the fryer.
Every damn one of you are going to eat mayonnaise whether you like it or not. I'm going to watch your cholesterol rise. Louisiana was hard because it's 1,500, 2,000 miles a week, and you got very rabid fans.
Oh, where were you? What territory were you in? We did about 3,000 a week.
Well, you know. I worked in the
You
office.
got just the easy shots up in the Oklahoma end. We started leaving for the towns the day before the trips were so long. We would leave after the show the night before and start heading out the next day.
Well, you got to remember, Corny, I worked that same area you guys did for a lot less money in the 70s.
Well, that's true.
The roads are the same, trips are the same, and when you were the referee and your bookers all loved heat, we had more house shows, more live events, and with the hero getting screwed with a 1, 2, 3 than any other finish, period. It's not like we have to send everybody home happy. We want to send everybody home engaged. Send everybody home emotionally invested. It wasn't.
Hey, some of them, especially in places like Tulsa and Lake Charles, a place like that, they went to jail emotionally engaged after the matches.
They did.
Because they'd gotten physically engaged with me.
And don't think that the people around town didn't hear that this damn wrestling thing is getting to be a sight for sore eyes. Get your seat. Go watch these people. Hell, they're taking them to jail, Martha. What?
Well, in Louisville, and I'm doing my next book, and I'm so obsessive, I'm going to have to break it up into volumes. We're doing the Louisville wrestling history, me and Mark James, just from 1970 to 1985. I think it would probably be 1,200 pages if it was one book. It's so detailed. But they would show every week at the Louisville Gardens the hot finish. We'd have some kind of riot. Some fans would jump in the ring. The police would be wrestling somebody to the ground. Things would be flying through the air. They'd show it back on TV the next week. And just the idea you were going to see a riot every week actually increased business. It didn't even matter what talent was in the thing.
Yeah, it was different. It was I think that's why people watch NASCAR. They want to see wrecks, not just left turns at high rates of speed. They want to see wrecks.
Yeah.
So you work for Bill. I learned a lot working for Bill. It was challenging. It was hard. But you know, at the end of the day, I can't thank him enough for what I learned from him. I felt badly for Bill because you knew Bill like I did. When he was on his game, he was hard to beat doing an hour television show, booking an hour TV show.
Yeah.
He was hard to beat. But then when he got to WCW in Atlanta, I don't think he realized that things had changed. And I don't know if so much as the business had changed, but how you dealt with talent under contract had changed, because that really wasn't his forte. He lost some of his the leverage that he coveted, because guys had money on paper.
Well, exactly. He ruled Mid-South Wrestling with an iron hand, and what he said went. And he gets in an environment where he doesn't have full control, and the guys are going to make the same amount of money whether they do what he tells them or not. And I said that was pretty much a recipe for disaster.
It is. Hey.
Okay, explain it, please.
Hey, do you remember you and I used to kid about after Mid-South, it was kind of expected, and I don't know why, maybe just the geography of it, or the fact that Bill and Fritz were kind of were partners to some degree in some of the promotions, and I just assumed you guys, the Midnight Express and Jim Cornette, were going to go to Dallas. With that assumption, I remember you and I used to laugh our ass off about the first time you'd be able to get in the ring in Dallas and do that Bonanza Cartwright promo using the Von Erich boys as Hoss,
Adam, and Little Joe.
Yeah. Of course, there's Paul.
And you know, of course, it was actually assumed that we were going to Dallas, to the point where they never actually told us, and we got ourselves booked in the Carolinas, because they just told us, you're finishing up a month of scaffold matches with the Rock and Roll. You'll be done December 13th. Okay, and nobody said anything else. So we're like, this is the first time we've ever been in the main event in a big territory. Even Dennis, who's been in business 12 years or whatever. So he said, Corny, Flair gave you the number, Dusty gave you the number, call the Carolinas. And I called in Jim Crockett, and we got booked. Did you ever hear this story?
No.
We were booked in the Carolinas to start, because Flair and Dusty both wanted us, and so Crockett was sold. We'd never even met him. And then as soon as I did that, then Dundee calls and says, Watts wants you to go to Dallas to work for Fritz. I said, we're booked. Oh, they made a big deal. You can come back for the Superdome, come back for Oak City, come back for, all the big shows, and you'll be right there. You got to do it for Bill. So I call Crockett and unbook us, and I think I'm going to start a giant wrestling war between Jim Crockett and Bill Watts. I've been in business 14 months. I'm shaking. 24 months at that point. And so we had actually gone the first night. The reason why Dundee knew is because they told us they wanted us to book us in Dallas. We went the first night and gave our notice to Ken Mantell, and we've already, decided to go to Carolinas. Nobody said anything.
Wow.
And then, Dundee calls, you got to do it. So out of loyalty, we unbooked, and we went over and 6 months in Dallas. But we were willing to give it a chance, but we never got the Von Erichs. We loved Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers. Had the best match of the show with them every night, but we worked with them for 6 months every night. And we never got the Von Erich money that the main events go, so we spent 6 months there. And that's when we went to the Carolinas for real. But yeah, you got to do that one promo though, right? I got to do that promo. I did that promo first night in Fort Worth.
Yeah. Because you and I had talked about that at different places.
There's somebody on the Ponderosa.
Oh yeah, you know.
I'll sing to set another place for dinner.
That's right. Pop sing.
Well, it was a natural. I enjoyed. I love that territory. If we get, we would have stayed there had we been making more money. And this was a time where we were averaging $1,000 a week. Some weeks would be 14. Some weeks might be 6. We only worked 4 days, but it was short trips. We were off it was a paid vacation after Louisiana almost killed us. But as far as being a great city, Dallas was great, and we would have stayed for more money, but at the same time, we were so hot from Louisiana, we didn't want to lose our leverage of being able to go to the biggest NWA territory in the country and be pushed, because that's what they were wanting to do. And so that's, eventually I think we made the right choice.
Oh, you did, yeah, and had a great run there. Somebody in Philly, I guess it was in Philadelphia, where Arn and Tully dropped the titles to you guys, right?
Yes.
Because I had fans talk to me about that at my little meet and greet thing I did on the day of the Royal Rumble, and they still remember it. They thought it was good, and I thought it was when I saw it on the booking sheet or somewhere, or maybe it was on the TV sheets. We were going to talk about it. I just thought it was unique as hell because it was kind of a funny time. It was almost getting to be that time where the heel fans were beginning to become more vocal. And
it was Philadelphia was the first really place where that started developing, because when we first went there for Crockett in like late '85, first of '86, Dennis Corluzzo and Gino Moore used to throw us in their van right out the back door and drive us through this angry crowd, and they'd be beating on you'd see the sides of the van caving in trying to get to us. They were so mad. And 2 years later in '88, they were cheering everything that we did.
Yeah.
And the thing in Philadelphia with Tully and Arn really is what cemented that from then on, Philly was the Midnight Express's town, because even those smart fans thought that they'd seen something they weren't supposed to see. When Tommy Young made the count and gave us the belts, they cheered, but they were waiting for it to be reversed or something. And when you watch the tape, which by the way is available at JimCornette.com, the Wrestling Rarities Midnight Express volume, because there's only one tape in existence. A guy with a camcorder in the bleachers taped this.
Wow.
When we leave the ring with the belts, they got louder. And they just, when we left with them, they were insane because, oh my God, it really is, this is true. This wasn't supposed to happen. We saw something different here.
Uh-huh.
And it got us over his baby face to the point where when we went back with the Dynamic Dudes, that was the famous night where Johnny and Shane almost wanted to kill themselves out of, you can't say what the signs said or what the chants were on your program.
Wow. I don't know how anybody could not like the Dynamic Dudes this morning.
Amazingly enough, I know, shocking as it may be, that's what happened.
That was a great, the Arn and Tully against Bobby and Dennis.
It was Stan at that point, yes.
Well, it was seamless. It was almost too smooth.
It was better because Tully and Stan were just such complete opposites, and Bobby and Arn had the acknowledged friendship. They were best friends in real life, and me and JJ were the odd couple, the parent and his delinquent son that's just walked away from a state home.
Yeah, really.
So there was contrast, there was sameness, it worked. I had so much fun doing that. I wish it had gone on longer for the paychecks also.
Yeah, I bet that was good.
We made more money with them in 6 weeks than anybody but the Rock and Roll Express.
Wow, that's good. Well, a good chemistry, came at a good time. And it was good booking. It made sense. Old Virgil did a good job writing that one down because that was a good pairing and just great chemistry. When I saw it on the TV sheets, I think there at TBS, maybe on Techwood, it was. I thought, boy, this is very interesting. I'd like to see this. Do you remember? Somebody asked me on Twitter if I would ask you about if you have any memories, yay, nay, or indifferent, when you wore that white suit on TBS and you guys got jumped by Heyman and the Midnight Express, and there wasn't any political backlash on the blood in the studio, was there?
Well, no, actually, see, that's the thing, and I'm staring at the jacket right now because it's on my office wall. But Dusty, I had pitched the idea because we asked him if we could bring in Paul Lee and Dennis Condrey and Randy Rose, who were the original Midnight Express, because they were finishing up with Vern or had finished up, and they'd been on ESPN, and we thought this is great because now we don't have Tully and Arn to work with. We got to find somebody, and we could do this. We'll be the baby faces, but each of us has a counterpart. And I pitched him the idea, let them jump us. I'm on the phone, whatever, and bust all three of us open with the phone. And Dusty said, "Nah, kid, if you're going to do that," and this is where Dusty was smart, "they've never seen you bleed, so just you bleed, and they don't have to bleed." And so he cracked me with the phone. He said, "Now get a little juice," because we weren't supposed to get a lot of blood, if at all, on PBS. And, you know, my problem was, with the first time around, let's say, I didn't realize when it's so cold in the studio, it takes a few seconds. And I panicked and think, I'm screwing this up. And so I went to the well about 3 more times.
Oh.
And by the time everything started coming in the 60-degree studio, that's when it was more than a little blood. But I didn't hear of any complaints. Everybody remembers the angle fondly, blah, blah, blah. But then it wasn't but about, 3 weeks later that Dusty had Road Warrior Animals spike him in the eye with their shoulder pads. And he got juice from his eye. And that's when they said, "No, this is too far. This is too much. The man's eye is being gouged out with a spike on our television," and that's where Dusty made his departure.
It's going to scare the Andy Griffith audience away. And
yes, Floyd would have been back in a chair if he'd have seen that.
Oh yeah.
But that was, one of our that was our best angle ever. It didn't draw a dime because then they went through 4 booking changes in 3 months, and the whole thing went straight down the porcelain throne.
Yeah, that was. God almighty, I used to leave those booking meetings so frustrated. I remember writing a show. I was left there. Okay, you got all the pieces. Let's put them together. It's no big deal. Okay, no problem. I did exactly as I thought I was supposed to do. We get to TV, and I can't remember who one of the guys of the booking committee. It's like the damn Pentagon. They said, "Well, this is not what we wrote." I said, "Yes, it is." I said, "And they know." Tell me, "Yes, yeah." I said, "Look. You left 2 hours before the meeting was over, so you could make your plane." So I didn't ask to write this crap. I didn't want to put all your pieces together of the puzzle that were laying on the desk. I said the nice thing about it is if you got an eraser, it can be fixed. So that's kind of how that worked. That booking committee thing was, I think it took years off everybody's life.
Do you remember when I gave and by the way, the first 2 jobs that I ever quit? Well, I can't say ever because we gave notice in Dallas we were going to the Carolinas, but just ever actually up and quit, just now, I'm done. We're in WCW, one on the booking committee and one actually working there as a talent. And both of them were Jim Cornette, the biggest wrestling fan in the history of the world. I've worn a dress in the I've been dressed in a diaper in the Superdome and been humiliated on national television and worked for very little money and jumped off scaffolds. And Jim Hurd made me miserable enough that I not only quit the booking committee in WCW, but finally just quit the whole company to get away from it.
It was really, really challenging to be there. We had such good talent there, and WCW could have been very much more relevant than they were back in that late 80s, early 90s period, because according to some of the most feedback I get from people on the WWE network are some of those old WCW pay-per-views that I have never watched again. I haven't watched them since we did them. So I'm having fun going back and watching some of those pay-per-views, and people saying, "Well, man, you had a different style back then." Yeah, there's a different product.
Oh yeah, I was about to say you were looking at something different in the ring too, and I've got to also say that most of the time when there was a committee, the person allegedly leading the company knew less about the business than all the people on the committee, which also led to people being driven out of their minds.
Yeah, absolutely. Just so frustrating that the fundamental things were not being taken care of.
If you're a corporal in the Army, do you want to know more about the freaking invasion of Normandy than the general that's sending you on the mission? Do you want to be more of an expert on whatever you're doing than the guy running the whole business?
Yeah, it's crazy. It was crazy times. I'm glad I went through it. I enjoyed living in Atlanta by and large. I really did. I had fun there. Great city. And before all the infrastructure started in the building and the construction overall, before the '96 Olympics, I had just a great time there. Had a lot of fun there.
Yeah, there's a great city in the middle of what Atlanta is now.
Yeah, really, it really is. Funny thing, we talked earlier about the Japanese deal. They didn't have any disqualifications. They had no countouts. Every match had a finish. And no matter who you were, or who was going over, if you're going to go over, you're going to go over the best you got.
Well, and imagine that. When you rely on, and I used to use DQs when I'm in Smoky Mountain or in OVW, because that's a tool in the wrestling toolbox that used to be able to be used to draw money, but it's been so overdone by everybody.
It means nothing.
That now it means nothing anymore, so it's another, tool we've taken out of our toolkit. Judiciously, there's nothing wrong with it, especially creatively, but for the most part, because other people have prostituted it, you got to just stay away from it.
Yeah, I agree. And I just don't see the logic. If you're really
Smoking is an addiction that eats away at nearly every vital organ of your body. Cigarettes are eating you alive. Quitting is hard. Don't do it alone. Treatment and medication are covered by most health insurance and Medicaid. Talk with your healthcare provider.
Really a good booker. It's like, did you ever book a match? I'm sure we both have book matches, but I generally had a pretty good idea. And I know yours a different level than me. Did you ever book a match where you absolutely said, okay, I'm going to book this match. It's a very important match on my card. It's the main event, or it's going to lead to something bigger, but I have no idea what we're going to do in the finish.
No, you don't book a match unless you know the finish.
Exactly. And I don't understand people giving ideas, people providing, here's an idea, okay, what's the finish? Oh, I don't know, but I just thought it was a good match. Well, yeah, okay.
And see, now we got to explain to some people, we're not just talking about the finish being who's going to win and who's going to lose or whatever, what the ruling is, what goes in the record book, as they say.
Right.
But actually how it's accomplished so that you don't hurt either guy and you get the point across that you want to get across, so the actual finish. Not of every match. An opening match is, George South versus Arn Anderson, we pretty much can take care of that on the spot. All respect to George. Hello, George, I love you. But
stay in the ring, go past 5.
Yeah.
Arn over the DDT.
But with your main event matches or your matches that are leading to something, you actually, when you write it down, you know what you want to do in the end to go forward. But now people don't do that.
Right. Oh, there's too many shortcuts, which we'll get to momentarily. Hey, if you were a curator or some guy that had a lot more money than brains said, hey, I got this mountain here, and I want to put the Mount Rushmore of wrestling managers on it. Who would be your 5?
Oh, God. No, there's only 4. JR, they had American history down in Oklahoma, didn't they now? Well, but actually, what when you think about Bobby Heenan?
Yeah.
Hey, boy, then you talk about the eras and the different impact. On a Mount Rushmore, do you put a Bobby Davis or a Wild Red Berry on there simply because they were really the first at what they did? Mm-hmm. Then do you go, to the north or the south, because there were great northern managers like Freddie Blassie, obviously, who would be on Mount Rushmore for wrestling anyway already, and the Wizard. And Albano, or do you go down south and you look at Sir Oliver Humperdinck and Gary Hart? Then, of course, the old Southern guys like Dr. Ken Ramey and Sir Steve Clements and George Two-Ton Harris, Bunk Harris, and then in modern day Paul Ellering. And did I mention JJ? And, of course, me and Happy Heyman. And Jimmy Hart, my God. So the eras or the style or the whatever, I always say Bobby Heenan is the best manager of all time. JJ and I agree on that. And the rest of us are glad to all be in the running and be, talked about. And I've left a ton of people out there. But how do you figure it past Bobby's the best?
No, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I even went this far one time in a Q&A. I said we were talking about the greatest performers ever, and who's the greatest in-ring performer. So you're either expected to say Flair or Shawn. As a rule, there are other guys. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of guys that are really, really good. So then they would ask me about, but who's the greatest performer? And I said, well, to me, one guy that comes to mind as the greatest performer in the history of the business is Bobby Heenan. Because if Bobby Heenan were wrestling today, he'd be a star. Because he was a lot better wrestler than most of the guys that are being featured nowadays.
Yeah, that's true. He didn't have the body, but he was actually a better worker than most of the guys that he managed, except for Stevens and Bockwinkel.
Yeah. So he was a much better than average wrestler. He took great bumps as a heel. You have to be able to feed the comeback of the baby face and fly around and get bounced around some. And God knows he could take bumps, and he could.
Oh my God! Nobody's ever done the same kind since.
And he knew how much color to get, and he knew everything, and how to beg, and how to be a weasel, and everything. Then he goes to become this manager we're talking about, as good as there ever was, and then he goes seamlessly right into the TV booth, and on a high level becomes an outstanding television broadcaster in a talk environment and a live event environment, and there are two different skill sets for those as well. So if you look at all the tools in the toolbox, Heenan is as good an all-round performer as the business has ever seen, in my opinion. And I also believe that my former partner on TV for so many years, the guy you know better than me, Lawler's got to be in that debate. Yeah. Because Lawler could wrestle, he could talk. The only thing that Lawler just didn't, he wasn't a manager very much, unless he was hurt or something. Lawler's Army was kind of managerial type stuff, but he was a general. But he's also a guy that had multiple high-level skills that could do several things for you in a territory. So I was real lucky. I got to work with both those guys. And people said, well, you had a great run. I said, I had a great run because I had great partners. And both those guys were very good. So, but Heenan was really I'm with you. He'd be the number one guy. Has anybody in a territory ever had the impact on one territory like Jerry Lawler has had on Memphis? And even still to this day at 65, he's having wrestling matches at NBA games.
Yes. Well, the answer is no. Nobody ever has. I mean, the old records have fallen a long time ago. I think the second time he ran for mayor, he pretty much cemented it as he's as over as any wrestler's ever been in a territory. Vern in Minneapolis just became, a legend and an icon. But at the same time, Vern Gagne himself did not draw as big a crowds in Minneapolis as Jerry Lawler did in Memphis.
Right.
But, Dusty's run in Florida was heavy, but it was shorter. And, there have been icons in different territories, but for longevity, for repeat business, for a 2 decades period of time when he was drawing significant crowds every week in a mid-sized market, and the TV ratings and et cetera, he's like the El Santo of modern wrestling.
Yeah, I agree.
And you remember I used to give the guys at OVWF nothing. I used to give them tapes of Lawler, and this always pissed me off, and I'll tell you why. When I first started in '93 with the WWF, and we'd go up to the TV tapings, me and the Heavenly Bodies, we were having better matches, let's face it, in the ring on a lot of occasions, in Smoky Mountain Wrestling in front of 500 to 1,000 people on the weekends, better than the matches were on WWF television at that point. In some cases, I mean, you had your Bret Harts and et cetera, and of course, yes, that's great, but you also had your gimmicks that I will not even go into now that were just there for ha-ha, right? And it was a little dreary sometimes.
Yep.
But the guys watching the monitor would sit there and watch every single, and finally when Jerry Lawler got in the ring, to have one of his matches where he'd do a commentary, his own commentary while he was beating up a job guy, or do some other kind of performance that nobody else was doing with his timing and everything that would get over, they'd get up and leave, and that's when I'd sit down. That's what I'd want to watch. The guy after 40-something years still can almost have the same match as far as what the people remember. He used to take stuntman bumps and get run over by cars, and be knocked down 40 rows of bleachers in the Coliseum when he was younger, but his match today is still everything that the people remember. The right hand, the fist drop, an occasional drop kick, and dropping the strap.
Yeah.
So he can still do the money-drawing parts of his match.
He can.
45 years later. It's amazing.
Smoking is an addiction that eats away at nearly every vital organ of your body. Your heart, lungs, mouth, throat, teeth, brain. Cigarettes are eating you alive. Quitting is hard, but you don't have to do it alone. You're twice as likely to quit for good with treatment and medication. Most health insurance, including Medicaid, cover medications. Talk with your healthcare provider.
No, he's very gifted, and I'm really glad I got to work with him and you and a lot of guys. I look back at my list of guys I worked with. I was so fortunate because I came at the right place at the right time, but I damn sure had the right teacher. I mean, I used to get my ass chewed out all the way from the Irish New Boys Club back out to the Holiday Inn at the airport for using the wrong adjective to describe a baby face who did the exact same thing as a heel. And I didn't know, and all of a sudden the light comes on, and I'm saying, now I get it. Here's what he's trying to teach me. There you have two personalities in there, and you want to get them both over, but you got to get them over in different vehicles. And you're on the same road, you're going parallel, but you're riding in different vehicles. So you got to be able to describe the ride a little bit differently. So that's what we did. Got a question here. I got into a little argument the other day with a fan, not long, because it was 140 characters, he asked me if I thought Chris Benoit should be in the WWE Hall of Fame. This has nothing to do with the WWE Hall of Fame. It has to do with Chris Benoit being honored as a outstanding professional. Whether it's WWE Hall of Fame or the one in Amsterdam, New York, or the one in Biloxi, I don't care, whatever. I'm just saying that. But, and I said no. He shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. What's your take on that, or do you have one?
Unfortunately, I don't think he should be erased from history to the point that they have done it where the shows he's edited out, et cetera, simply because it actually calls more attention to it for the people that know that he was there. They are great performances. He was, as we all know, for 99.9% of his life, the nicest, kindest, best kid, most determined, hardest worker that you would trust, the whole 9 yards. And then for whatever reason, and I'm sure several of them played a part together, he went completely insane and did horrible things. I don't think he should be honored in a ceremony, honored as his life or his career celebrated, but at the same time, and that's unfortunate because he would be a Hall of Famer, but he kind of disqualified himself. But as far as being erased from everything, I think that goes a little too far in the other direction.
I think that the WWE is slowly integrating him back into some of those old DVDs and
I mean, does the NFL if they do a documentary that would otherwise feature O.J. Simpson? Do they act like he wasn't there and they don't mention him and they ignore any of the things that happened before he fucking started killing people?
No, I think not. I think you're right there. I don't think they go out of their way to embellish his legacy, but they don't ignore him. He's not erased. My theory is, and I've said this to people, and I think it makes a little bit of sense. Knowing Chris as you did and I did, he wouldn't want to be a distraction. And he knows even posthumously, him being inducted, it'll become more about the last couple of days of his life than it will be about the 20-plus year career that he had. I hired him, and I wanted to hire him earlier. I had to work my tail off to get a 5'9" guy hired. But there's no way that Chris would endorse himself being a distraction on that night because he had too much respect for the business to allow that to happen on his watch. That's my take on that deal. Did you think that, because we haven't talked about, I don't think we talked since Undertaker lost at WrestleMania 30. Do you?
Well, we've talked, but we haven't talked about that.
Did you like it or not?
No, I didn't like it. That's another of those things that it takes more talent than almost anything in wrestling to see coming. Is one of the things that it sounds like they want to see it until they see it, and then they realize they don't want to see it.
Yeah, I didn't like it either. And then having Lesnar beat Undertaker, I have no issue with Brock Lesnar because he's a freak of nature, without question. However, the only thing I found, and it's too late now, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's really irrelevant. But if you're going to beat Undertaker or somebody, you might want to beat him with somebody that works a full-time schedule.
Well, yeah, and Brock didn't need it. He was already a star, and I don't know that he's appreciably more over for doing that than he was to begin with, or would be if he hadn't. At the same time, at this point, people didn't want to see the streak over. It wouldn't even have elevated a young guy. Some people say, well, they should have taken a young guy and elevated him. I think it would have let the air out of people's sails. That was the WrestleMania feel-good moment, and it almost would have hurt a young guy in people's eyes. They would associate him with an unpleasant memory of the guy that ended the streak. And maybe Brock got a little heat over it, but he wasn't full-time enough to capitalize on it. I think they should have left it go. Yeah. That was the thing that will never be equaled, and that's kind of
Yeah, I was shocked and saddened by it because I didn't feel it. It just didn't. If it was going to lead to something bigger and better for the company and the business, the boys, then I'm okay with it, I guess. But I didn't see that happening, and now we're almost a year later, and I'm still scratching my head. Yeah. Now tell me again, why does Undertaker's streak end? I don't.
Well, and also the people who think that Triple H. Let me try it again. The Sting versus Undertaker would be a dream match. No, there wouldn't, for the same thing we just talked about. What's the finish?
Yeah.
You're not gonna make people mad in a money drawing heat kind of way with whoever wins, or get somebody over in a money draw kind of way whoever wins. If you have a winner or a loser, and if you don't, people are going to be mad about that. But then somebody is going to be not mad but saddened by it. There's no way that either one of those guys should lose. Undertaker not again, and Sting not at this point.
Yeah, and you have two character baby faces in the match, and so you have the opportunity for that crowd to be very indifferent because they really don't want to see either guy lose.
Yeah, and they don't want to disrespect the other guy by booing. It's one of those things that somebody comes up with and says, "Wow, that's never happened. Wouldn't that be great?" Well, years ago it may have been, but right now under these circumstances, what prevail, I think it would be horrible. Yeah, and I'm sure they're not going to do it. Obviously,
no, I don't think they are either. And again, what's the finish? And you don't say, well, they don't do draws anymore. So, because I've been a proponent of adding draws back into the business, if nothing else, a little TV 10-minute time limit or a TV time remaining.
Is there any sport or any form of athletics that does not have some method of keeping time and some way of ending up at a draw if nothing happens in a certain period of that time?
I'm not aware. There may be something deep in the jungle between gorillas or something that...
baseball is a little loosey-goosey with the actual as long as it can go, but they're quantifying the turns in some fashion.
They don't have they have a winner. They have a winner, and there's extra innings, and I don't know anything, Corny. I don't know anything. I just don't understand why... Why people believe that draws are boring, and it's because they've never seen a good one, in my view. Because I've seen some draws, as have you. I've called some draws, as have you. Somebody reminded me of a draw the other night that I don't know if you called it with me or somebody else, but it was really good. I think it might have been Austin and Steamboat or something like that in the early 90s. They went 30 minutes.
I was not there then, but I remember seeing it on TV.
Good match, 30 minutes. They told a great story, and then the clock became an ally. The clock became a tool that you could use, because no matter who you are, everybody can. Time's always an issue. We have watches, we have phones with clocks on them. You know, we got 30 minutes or free. Time's everywhere. So I don't get the fact.
Oh, I got to tell you, two stories about time. One's very quick. Frankfort, Kentucky, 1979, ICW. It's Randy Savage versus Lanny Poffo for the ICW World Title. They're going to go an hour Broadway, but the house is not that great, so they're going to shave a little time. So they actually did an hour Broadway in like 44 minutes, right? Which would have worked back in those days, except they were wrestling in a ring that was under a giant clock on the wall that everybody in the building was looking at. so that didn't get over. And secondly, I'm in Ring of Honor several years ago, right after I left TNA, and watching the show, and the match is going boom, 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 and they're just tearing it up with false finishes, and suddenly, out of nowhere, the bell rings. And the announcer says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the time's expired." And the people booed like crazy. And I asked at the time, it was Adam Pearce. I said, what just happened? Why did the announcer didn't call 5 minutes remaining, 4 minutes remaining? Oh, we don't do that. Why? Well, because they've established that if we do that, then the people will know it's a draw, and it won't get over. I said, then the way to do that is the next time after you have a draw, do the same thing. 5 minutes left, 4 minutes left, 3 minutes left, and end the match with 30 seconds left.
There you go.
Then now they don't know, but they were having draws out of the blue that the bell would ring suddenly in the middle of this great match without any pre-warning, and wondered why it didn't get over. So the time limits, everybody can understand them. And if you do the match right, then it aids it instead of takes away from it.
Yeah, they nowadays, you can watch any, I'm not sure, and I watch a lot of wrestling. I watch Lucha Underground because I like some of that high-flying stuff, and I'm intrigued by how they produce and the look of their backstage segments. So something about it intrigues me. Now, they haven't got that one talent red hot that I really want to see. I do like the quasi lucha, catch as catch can kind of intermingling. Don't have a problem with that. And it's on Wednesday night, so I got a clean night to watch a little bit of wrestling. So I don't have a problem with it. So there's that show. Then the Ring of Honor, I get this on 4 times in a weekend here in Oklahoma City. How they can't be more profitable and they can't be more successful with all those good TV stations around the country shocks me. You know, I don't understand. But none of these Lucha Underground, I don't think. I'm like Ring of Honor does. I don't think TNA does. I know WWE doesn't. Use the time limit is nothing unless.
Well, now we were doing. I don't know what they're doing in Ring of Honor right now. We were doing that. And also what I liked, I'm not sure they're still doing it or not, but we were doing a tail of the tape on our television program. Of course, it was challenging to get the funds to produce the program, much less have nice fancy graphics and things. But a tail of the tape gave it more of an athletic feel, and also when you introduce guys, instead of fighting out of a la Bruce Buffer, who Michael Buffer can go piss up a rope as far as I'm concerned. Bruce Buffer's the man in that family. Not fighting out of, but wrestling out of San Francisco, California as their hometown or whatever. It just little subtle differences like that are things. I think we talked about this one time when the announcers used to be able to clearly state that the winner of the wrestling match got a bigger share of the purse than the loser.
Right.
And just little things like that gave some logic to an illogical business, as Bill Dundee would say.
They even did that in the XFL football league. The winning team got more money than the losing team. Seriously, swear to God. Swear to God. And
he can do it in everybody else's business. He can't do it in his own.
Hey, what do you think about of all the guys that you and Danny Davis did a hell of a job for WWE all those years in OVW, trained some of the best guys. And I talked to a lot of people that have been down there and that they loved it. But do you have a favorite? Is there somebody that you guys worked extra hard to mold that made it?
Oh gosh, I don't know if there's anybody that we worked extra hard, because we tried to work as hard with everybody and also give everybody the chance that they deserved. If they outperformed the other guys, we gave them more chances at it. But, we've always been real proud of John Cena, and he takes tremendous criticism from all the fans. It's not his fault that, they've been telling him to win most all the matches for the last 10 years. Yeah, I'm sure he would have no problem with losing a few or whatever, or doing some things differently, because he actually was a more varied performer when he was in OVW. But he does what they need him to do. So he takes a lot of crap for it, but at the same time, John showed up in Louisville the first day of class. He already had his apartment found. He had his furniture rented. He had all of his, ducks in a row from the very start. That's how Danny and I both knew, that he was going to be a big deal. And plus he had the genetics and the look and the talent that he could talk. But, really everybody that got the chance, there was a lot of guys I wish would have got a lot more chances to be themselves rather than, tripping over some bad booking and bad gimmicks along the way.
Sure. Yeah.
And the Bashams, I thought were, I loved them as a tag team. But they were overshadowed by their manager, Shaniqua, who is now candidate for induction into the WWE Hall of Fame.
Really?
No, I'm kidding.
Shaniqua.
She holds the record. I won't even say her real name. She'll probably sue me for slander, but she was the only... I ran a wrestling school television show for 6 years, and she was the only match that was so bad that I just wouldn't air it. We reran a tape from the previous week of something else in that segment.
Let's go, let's go! Everybody get up! Everybody get up! Everybody get up!
Este Black Friday, levántate. Empieza el jueves a las 6 p.m.
Everybody get up!
In that segment.
She was probably named by some little white kid and created.
Well, yeah, I would think either that or they were watching, movies, at the video store.
Crazy. I remember who you're talking about. She was a good athlete. She didn't have, she just didn't have the aptitude for this business. I was talking to Draws the other day, God bless him. I did a picture for Fox Sports on him, and he said that he would put the training to be a wrestler up against the training to be in an NFL camp or a college camp any day. He said anybody that thinks it's so much easier to be a wrestler than it is to be a football player on the top two levels is out of their mind. And I don't think a lot of people quite get that. And some people...
Well, and the MMA fighters say the same thing that have done both.
Yep.
So... like you said, I wonder why wrestling has such a reputation. Oh, it's so easy. Well, probably because a lot of the guys, it's so easy to get in the business these days. A lot of guys make it look like that anybody can do it.
Yeah, and quite honestly, though, Corny, you're right about getting the business is easy. But there were guys that we all can remember that stood out in our childhood and all through our formative years. They were so good at what they did in the ring, they made it look easy. And because they were just really, really damn good at what they did.
Yeah.
Did you? When you talk about, is there enough separation in your view between Flair and Shawn Michaels to say that one is clearly better than the other?
At different things, yes. But at the same point, I've always thought that if you separate things by decades, Flair was the 70s man, the 80s definitely, maybe part of the 70s. First part may belong to Funk or Briscoe. In the 90s, it was Michaels because it was, Michaels, to be honest, he was the best in-ring performer at that time in the business, and he was not the nicest guy outside of it or the easiest to deal with. Flair was more of a complete package. He was definitely easier to deal with and a lot more professional in his dealings until sometimes pushed. But Michaels was, the 90s had evolved into a human pinball game.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Flair and Steamboat in '89 in that trilogy was as far as you could take wrestling before it became sports entertainment. They did as good a job as you could do at simulating combat and not showing that there was cooperation involved. Anything fancier than that, pretty much had to have some cooperation involved between the two guys. So Michaels and when Flair said Michaels had the match with the ladder. But, they did that stuff, and it was a great spectacle and a great athletic show, but it was starting to be sports entertainment rather than professional wrestling at the highest level. I think we got it to a tipping point.
I love calling those ladder flare steamboat matches. I've said this to people, and it's not any negative. It may sound it. They were so good, Rick and Ricky. They were so good, Corny, that sometimes I thought their matches were almost too smooth. Like, come on.
Nobody ever made any mistake.
Give me a hiccup. Give me a stumble. Give me a oops.
Or if they did make a mistake, they covered it up so good you couldn't tell.
Yeah, absolutely. They were just absolutely amazing, and that was a big thing for me. One of the real advantages when Watt sold and I came into Crockett JCP. You guys were there, and a lot of my friends were there, and Arn, and guys that come through Mid-South. Rick had been through Mid-South a lot. So I was accepted pretty good, except by some of the announcers weren't so happy that I was there. But, Dusty put me with Bob Caudle, which I, quite frankly, look back on it as what a gift. What a gift that was, because I got to work with one of the nicest human beings on the face of the earth, and arguably the most underrated pro wrestling announcer ever.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Because Lance Russell was absolutely phenomenal, but he got his just due because he was on that show in Memphis, got the big ratings. He got some recognition, but Bob, for whatever reason, was kind of in the background. He was about as anonymous a play-by-play guy for a big territory as you could find. And I just,
as you called him one time, the epitome of a white man wearing brown shoes.
Yeah. He was.
But he was smooth, and he was folksy, and he was so experienced. He'd been doing broadcasting for 30 years, and he was like a friend talking to you, or a friendly uncle. He didn't get in the way. He sold the personalities. He was outraged at the proper times, but he wasn't over the top. And he just, he was an institution in the Carolinas. I don't know if he got enough time on national television where they could really, see what he could do, but he was perfect.
He was. Oh yeah, he was. He was fun to work with, and I love being around him. Going to try to get him on the podcast.
Now there your Mount Rushmore of announcers, because obviously Lance Russell, Gordon Soley, yourself, and Bob's the fourth base.
Wow,
Bob becomes Teddy Roosevelt.
Pretty cool group. Those guys. Those dogs are good. Those little dogs could hunt. Let me tell you. And I learned something from all those guys. Every single one of those guys. I learned something from. Corny, if you could, go back in any era, just pick out one guy to be the world champion. He's the world champion, and you could be the manager. Is there one guy that you said, okay, that would be obviously that would be blank? Who would it be?
Well, can I sort of answer that question, because I've gotten asked questions before about who would you wish you could have managed from any era. I would have loved to have managed Bockwinkel and Stevens.
Really?
In the AWA, or maybe even Stevens and Patterson in San Francisco, because Ray Stevens, I never got to see him, and there's very little film. Maybe Vince has it buried up there somewhere. Instead of the Battling Midgets or the Best of Madison Square Garden 1992, why don't we have some Ray Stevens on the network? I'll buy it. But Stevens was the best in the ring, in the business, that everybody said in the 60s, and they were. Bockwinkel was so smooth, and what a great tag team they were. And I see the pictures of Bobby with them, and I'm envious. Just for tag team wrestling, because that was always my specialty. To get a chance to manage the guy that's the best in the business in the ring, and Pat Patterson wasn't no slouch when they were in their prime, or Stevens when he was still good, but he'd had the wrecks, and Bockwinkel was so good in a big territory like that, the World Tag Title matches. That may have been, or the Fargos in Madison Square Garden in the 50s.
Wow, that's good. See, I would never have gone there. I really like the answers. It's intriguing. Somebody asked me one of the best. What's the best tag match you called in WCW or I can't remember, maybe it was Crockett, but whatever it was. And I said, well, you mean without the Midnight Express or the Rock and Roll Express involved? Because if I'm going to tell you, I can't tell you which one, because I called too many. But I can tell you that the best tag matches I ever called were the Midnight Express versus the Rock and Roll Express. Now, don't go crazy here and say, well, what version of the Midnight Express? And And did Cornette have his tennis racket? And you know, yeah, yes.
Thank you. Awesome. Can I get an encore? Do you want more? Get wrong with the Brooklyn Horns. For one last time, I need y'all to go. What the hell are you waiting for? Nice to see you, big guy. Welcome back. Good to be back. I can't feel you. We got so much more. We all I want to do is be all like me and be loved
Narrow it down, JR.
Yeah. Narrow it down. But another match, you may remember this match, is when we had the Steiners against Dr. Death and Terry Gordy.
Oh, that was classic.
Was that good stuff or what?
Yeah, because, you know, all those guys knew exactly what they were doing and how to stay over as badasses, but still, because they were all badasses, they put the other guys' stuff over. And Gordy was, you know, he was the best big guy, and he was not only the best big guy worker in the business, but he was also probably the best at a young age. Well, I got a chance to see him when he was 18 here in Memphis, and he was blowing most of the rest of the guys on the card away.
Yeah.
So, and the Steiners, you know, when they were still completely mobile, and, you know, Scott was pulling that stuff out that nobody ever seen before from a guy that size. You know, and they all had the great backgrounds, amateur backgrounds. So that was good, believable stuff, but with different personalities that were over.
Yeah, they were there. Those matches, I can still vividly remember those matches. I bet you that was about 1992 or something like that. But boy, they were really, really good. I love those. They stick out. And it's hard for me, and I don't know how I'm sure you do the same thing. Somebody says, what's the best match you ever commentated? I said, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've done, you know, thousands of matches, and a lot of them I really liked. And I said, I've always been a fan, so I always found something pretty much in general that was paid. I was there. I had a good seat. I was getting paid. So I never had a bad night, really, in that respect.
Well, it's like, what's your favorite song or your favorite movie? When you start thinking, you know, movies or songs or matches, but to narrow it down to one is sometimes, you know, almost impossible.
What do you tell people when you go to these meet and greet things you do, and the different comic cons or different cons or whatever, you know, all these things?
I've always got a con.
I know you do, buddy. Hey, but you know, what do you tell people when they do the Q&As and they say, what do I need to do, or what can I do, or what's the chances are of me becoming a manager? And I get those questions a lot. Now, I've never been a manager. You've been one of the greatest of all time. I don't give them a lot of, I try not to be a naysayer, but man, the chances of you making it full time to make a living as a full-time pro wrestling manager in today's world is going to be really challenging for you.
Well, you know, I always say I know the easiest way to make $5 million in the wrestling business. That's start with $10 million. But you know, if you want to do it, here's the thing: the industry leader is not using managers except for Heyman and Zeb Coulter's in and out, and most of the other companies follow suit with what's trendy there. So managers have been on the outs. I love Truth Martini in Ring of Honor. Found him actually one of the first Ring of Honor house shows I went to, and he was managing a local team, and it's like the first time he'd ever managed. And he did a couple of spots that were Heenan worthy. And I said, we're going to make that guy, you know, a top manager, and he's been tremendous. But do it because you want to do it, because you have fun at a local promotion near you. Don't spend a ton of your personal finances to do it. Don't let it screw up your real life, because for every band that gets signed to a record label, there's, you know, a lot more playing in the garage and the rec center somewhere, and you got to realize that. And You know, it's like there's a lot of guys not making money in the wrestling business these days. Well, there's much fewer spots for managers, so you're standing in a line for even fewer positions. So if you're lucky enough to get to do it, do the best you can. But the money would be gravy at this point, I would think.
Yeah, I say the same thing to a lot of kids who want to be announcers. You know, announce anything you can get behind a microphone on. I don't care if it's a little league game or a high supper. You got to practice. You got to get a reel, and you got to sometimes work for nothing. You got to get that experience, and then
the way we all got our businesses where we were hangers-on in some fashion or another, and unfortunately, there's not enough places to be a hanger-on now, and ones there are don't pay very well.
That's right. The hanger-on places are closed. You know, there's nobody that lives there anymore. Do you think that I have some issues here, some peas? I think that the occasional time limit draw is got a place. I think the occasional 2 out of 3 fall match, which for television is perfect because it's episodically produced. One fall, commercial break, or second fall, win it, or go to the third fall, whatever. And not always having 3 falls, quite frankly. And I have this pet peeve of matches being interrupted for commercial breaks. Because you look back at a lot of the more dramatic programming on television, a sporting event or something, they don't dare leave while the ball's in play. And in the wrestling business, because it's showbiz, they get their cue. And
oh my God, what's going to happen next? So-and-so's in jeopardy. Yeah. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
You know, I understand when you had to, like, some of the best shows I've ever seen from a wrestling promotion were like the Worldwide Wrestling Show in '87, I think, from Fayetteville with Flair and Wyndham. They went the whole hour. Or the Midnight Express, the Fantastics from Chattanooga, where we went the whole hour. You have to take a break, but the problem is it takes you out of the match. And it you know, as the match is really best presented as a complete work, and you're taking breaks in it. And for something like that, you have to. But when they do it these days, when a match has gone 45 seconds and they take a break and come back and go 3 minutes, that doesn't fly with me.
I think that the thing about it is that you're obligated to your television partner to have so many minutes of commercial time. They're an hour, obviously. And so you break those up into these breaks. So generally, in a 1 hour show, you have 6 segments, and that equates to 5 commercial breaks. So I'm just saying that you would have a shorter segment, or maybe 2, to reset or to get that quick interview or reaction or whatever. But the gist of it is that the majority of the match would be clean. It would be whole. And I think that everybody wins more if you look at it. But nobody seems to want to. You know, I watched TNA. I thought, well, when they come back, they're going to change their format. They're going to be a little bit different. And they're back in the WWE mode of long talking segments to start the show. And I don't understand it. I don't know if I'm seeing too much of it, because I was never one that didn't like a great promo. But golly, everybody can't do a great promo. And then the guys that can do them are the ones you see every week doing them. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. I'm just thinking that, I kept waiting for, I thought when TNA came back, and I'm pulling for him because, Keith Mitchell works there. He's one of my buddies, and, Taz and some of these guys that I worked with and I like. I like their families. I like for all the boys to make money. But gosh almighty, some of the things they're doing are just like, really, why do you want to do it?
In the words of the immortal Dutch Mantel, if you always do what...
Let's go! Everybody get up! Everybody get up! Everybody get up!
Este Black Friday, levántate. Empieza el jueves a las 6 p.m.
Everybody get up!
Do what you always did, that you always get what you always got.
Yeah. Zeb Coulter, Dutch Mantel, Wayne Cowan, the Vietnam veteran. Well, I just don't see why you couldn't do that. It might be something, especially if you got 3 hour format to play with. It gives you some more toys as far as the minutes in your show and how you break it up. Are you?
You know, I would have watched a 3-hour wrestling show when I was a young fan, but I was gonzo. I was almost mentally deficient nuts over wrestling, and I would have watched, but I'm just wondering if that's a little too long for most people.
Might be. I think it is. I think, you know, the extra money. People say, why does WWE do the 3-hour Monday Night Raw?
Because they get paid for it.
Big money. It's big money. It's life-changing, difference-making kind of money from their television partner who wanted 3 hours. We want you to do another hour, and we're going to pay you this ridiculous amount of money to do so. You're already there. You just come on an hour early. And in theory, all those little generalization things sound reasonable. But, boy, it's hard to write a 3-hour television show. I mean, it's tougher than hell.
Especially when your matches only last 4 minutes.
Yeah, I don't get that. I don't get that at all. And then you have a lot of 50-50 booking. If you're a champion and you're on TV, you're apt to lose more matches than you win. And still be the champion, by the way. I don't understand that. And I don't. And the 50-50 booking side, I'm not even so sure, Corny, that nowadays the occasional enhancement match would not be a bad idea.
Well, how else does the giant biker or the huge freak from another country or the man-eating, a pig-faced boy from Jupiter, Florida, an American Horror Story freak show get over unless they demolish 2 or 3 young, pasty-faced, unknown baby faces and pick their teeth with them in under 2 minutes?
I don't know. I think that here's the deal. There's a whole generation of fans that have never even seen that. They've never even seen that. So how do they? So it's all like, wow. Somebody.
Okay, and then I'm going to give you a news bulletin. Here is how to make a superstar in 2015. I want somebody to find me somebody that looks just like Abdullah the Butcher, that can drop the meat cleaver elbow, and I will be their manager. And all I want is 2 minutes on TV with some white meat baby faces to butcher for 8 weeks in a row, and I'll get the guy over for you.
Yeah, then you're ready for the pay-per-view.
And there you go.
So that's how that works. And I don't disagree with you either, quite frankly. I think the enhancement match has a place if you're smart in how you place it and how you surround it. And you got that, the thing about it's like Heyman. Paul Heyman's the best talker in the business right now on air. It's on regularly, by far.
It's not close.
And it's him and everybody else. And I've mentioned, man, there's some other young managers should be able to get getting a rub from Paul. And I've always thought that Miz is going to be a lot better manager and make bigger money and be a bigger star as a manager than he's ever going to be as a wrestler.
And my problem is when I see him in the ring with wrestlers, I go, why is there Paul Child on my television?
I told her, I got to do that mistake every night before I go to bed too.
Pouty, baby, manager, wah. You can cut it and throw a break dance for me. I'm with you there. I could be a Miz fan.
Hey, the last question here, and it's really
stay away from the show.
Saying, ask Cornette what he thought of your interview, speaking about my interview with New Jack in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And I'm thinking, yeah, I remember doing an interview with New Jack, but maybe I did more than one with him.
Well, no, actually, I think the one they're talking about, it was at the Night of Legends in Knoxville. You and Les called the show, and that was their first appearance in the Coliseum, and they didn't wrestle. They came out and did an interview.
Okay.
And, you threw all the great lines in, like, folks, the views of the gangsters, not necessarily those of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And that was at the time, literally, it was legitimate that the NAACP had called to ask about them. And we were talking about that they were trying to be censored by the NAACP and et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And New Jack, it was a star-making performance. It was, as an interview, and I've seen a lot of good interviews and done some, it was one of the best wrestling interviews I've ever seen. And we got them, that was really their first big appearance, and you were the perfect foil and disturbed at their comments and et cetera. And if they could have just worked in the ring anywhere near the level of this promo, that gimmick may have worked yet, but I'm not sure.
he was a good talker, had a good attitude. You know, he was the angry black man.
And then later on, you know, life imitated art, and but we're good now. But the New Jack did go out there for a while. He was out on the planet Zambodia.
Yeah, well, it was a fun deal. People said, you got to ask Cornette if he remembers that promo, and I said, well, he'll remember. I'm thinking, well, you're going to remember it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But I didn't remember it was done at the that big show. And hey, by the way, this is news just in from my news service. You know, Les Thatcher has had his eyes worked on, so he didn't wear those Coke bottle glasses anymore.
Oh, I knew he was getting eye work done, but I did not know that the glasses would be.
He's a new man,
completely gone.
He's a new man, Corny. He's a new man, and he's always been a good friend of ours, and we got a lot of respect for old Lester. And
I hit him with the line one time in Smoky Mountain. I said, Les Thatcher, you look like a seal peering through a block of ice. And it was, I'm not sure whether he liked it or not, but I almost couldn't finish the promo.
He's a good dude. Well, listen, Corny, thanks for all the time. Hope the fans have enjoyed this extended version.